The wonderful feast of St. Peter and Paul falling on the Sunday this year. St. Peter, the called by Christ, professing the divinity of Christ, and yet then denying Christ 3 times, then coming back. The resurrection of Jesus, Jesus asking him, "Do you love me?" And Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know all things, you know that I love you." So great strength there initially from Peter, great weakness, and then great strength then from Christ. He finally gets it right. And the same can be said of St. Paul. St. Paul was a murderer, as you recall, murdering Christians, had a major conversion, was reduced to weakness and blindness, and then his eyes are opened and away he goes, becoming an equally incredible apostle. So Peter and Paul, Peter was crucified upside down in his death, and St. Paul was beheaded for his trouble. The first reading from the liturgy today tells us about the miraculous liberation of St. Peter by an angel. He's in jail, and this occurs a number of times in the Acts of the Apostles. It also occurs with St. Paul. Paul is in Thessalonica in jail, and he's liberated not by an angel, but this time by an earthquake. And so this miraculous intervention is necessary very early on in the life of the church, because it then gives the church some strength and impetus going forward. But eventually then they are martyred. We might just focus on those miracles for a minute. Miracles are rare, but they do happen. It's basically the supernatural entering the natural. And that's an important point. When the supernatural enters the natural in such a way, we tend to see the laws of nature suspended. Not contradicted, but suspended. Very important. But for my liking, nature itself is like a miracle. I've always had trouble getting my head around things like water is H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen. To me, that's just a miracle. How that happens, I don't know. The complementarity of hydrogen and oxygen. And then, of course, just the whole, the planetary system with the Earth and the Earth rotating and tilting. It's just, to me, incredible that this works so well. That's, to me, a miracle. But anyway, it may be different for you. But miracles are rare, but they did occur, and the first reading shows us this one. It's it's a fun reading, and it's a good reading. I mentioned the deaths of these 2 men, and we might just finish on this. When I was in Rome in 1992, with my mother, God rest her soul, I was able to get in and have Mass in the Apostolic Palace with Saint Pope John Paul II. Walked into the chapel, and there's the Pope praying. It was quite engaging, I must say. And set behind him was the altar, and then set behind the altar there's 2 beautiful mosaics. One of Peter being crucified upside down, and the other of Paul being beheaded. And there was the successor of St. Peter praying before us, and then he stood up, vested, and said Mass. It's a tremendous thing, isn't it? I mean, Christ crucified, and then Peter saying, "Well, I'm not worthy to be crucified like my master, crucify me upside down," and Paul being beheaded. These men who say to us, look, truth and love and hope can be so strong that at times we bear witness to us and we give our life for it. That's basically the message. And that is a magnificent witness to us. Reminds us, of course, of our own death. What sort of death will we have? Our death will be an entirely unique experience. I wonder what sort of death we will have, that I will have. But we should prepare for it as best we can. And the best way in the spiritual tradition, we're given this great counsel in the spiritual tradition from one saint after another and from not so saintly people, that the most important thing is, if we can, is to die to ourselves a little bit each day, so that when the point of death comes, we'll be ready to give of ourselves in that great act. And of course, when we do come for the separation of the soul and the body, which is death, we will have Christ right beside us, because he's transformed our death into an act of love and a passageway to eternal resurrected life. That'll be something, won't it?